Okay, so routing. This is the core of any web framework, and Goravel makes it really clean. But before we get into that, let me set up one thing first that will save us a lot of time. As we keep making changes to our code, we are going to need to restart the server again and again, and that gets tedious really fast, right? So we are going to use a tool called Air, which automatically reloads the server whenever we change anything. So as you can see, there are a couple of ways to install it, like using go install or go get tool or using installation script. But we are going to use go install since that is the recommended way. If if it doesn't work for you, you can try other methods listed here. So let's go to our terminal and install the air here. Go install github.com airwords air and latest version. Now it's installed. We can verify it if it is installed correctly by running air hyphen v. As you can see, air version 1.64.5 is successfully installed in my machine. Now we use air to restart the server. No more go run dot. So let's use air. Air will watch go temple or and HTML files inside the project, and if anything changes, it will reload the server again. So let me quickly show you it actually works, right? So let's make some small changes in main.go. Just add a print statement. Now save the file. As you can see it automatically detected the change in main.go and restarted the server. We didn't touch the terminal at all. So next you can also customize the air's behavior by editing .air.uml file in the root directory. For example, you can reduce the delay before it restarts. For example, let's reduce it to 500 so that it will wait for 5 milliseconds before it restart. Or you can add more directories which you want to exclude to watch, or you can add more file extension which air has to watch for the changes. But for now, for us, the default extensions works fine. And from this point on, we just run air once and forget about it. Now the server is running using air. Now let's go to routes and web.go. To register routes in Goravel, we use route facade. We can use methods like get or any other HTTP wall provided by the route facade to register a route. For example, here we already have a get route. The first argument is the endpoint. The second argument is the handler, which gets executed when that route is called. The handler accepts a Goravel HTTP context and returns a Goravel HTTP response. And for example, here we are returning a view of the welcome file, which is basically an HTML response. You can check your views file in resources, views directory. But we are not limited to the HTML only. We can send different types of response. For example, let me define a route that returns a string. So let's use route facade and get method. The argument will be your endpoint and second argument will be your handler. You can return a response using CTX context response method, which provides convenient methods like string, which accepts a status code and a text body. Now when we hit to hello route, it returns hello word as a plain text. We can inspect it by using dev tool. Let's refresh it again, and as you can see the content type is plain, but we can also pass custom headers here. For example, we can pass a For example, we can pass a content type using header method. Let's return a text HTML and let's change the body to say h1 tag. Now when we reload it again, now see it has rendered a HTML instead now, and you can see the content type is also a text HTML now. Let's remove it again. So apart from string or HTML, we can also return JSON. To return a JSON object, we can use JSON method which accepts a status code, let's say 200, and a response body which can be any object. So let's return a map. Now when we refresh the page, now it has returned a JSON body. Apart from these, there are other types of response as well, like file. You can send file as a response, or you can send bytes data, which is basically any type of data, or you can even stream data to the client using stream method. But we are not going to look at all of those now. Now we can also group multiple routes together. So this is very useful when you have a lots of routes sharing the same prefix. So instead of writing API v1 on every single route manually, you can define it once on the group and everything inside gets it automatically. So to do this, we define a prefix for the group. For example, API v1 using the prefix method provided by route facade. And then use group method which accepts a function that takes a route.router as an input, right? Now inside this group, we can use router to define any route. For example, a post request. Post also takes first argument endpoint and second argument handler. We usually use post when we want to send data to the server. Let's return a string response only for now. Now it is registered. Now we cannot make post request directly from the browser. So for the testing, we can use tools like Postman or curl. But in this series, I'm going to use the GoLand's HTTP client. But you are free to use any tool available to you. It won't make any difference here. So to use it, just create a file with HTTP file extension in the root directory. So for example, let's create a request.http. So to define a request, name it with 3 S's. For example, let's name it tasks, and then the next line is the method, post in our case, and the route. So this is just localhost. And API v1 tasks. Notice here we have to use prefix which we defined using prefix method. Let's hit the run. Now it made the request right in here in the header. This is really useful because all your test request sits inside the repo. You can push the code and the request comes with it instead of sharing the Postman collection every time, right? Let's go to web.go again. Now you can also give routes a name. For example, we can name our post requests using the name method. Let's name it to say tasks.create. And you can get the information about a specific named route using info method provided by route facade. Enter the name of route. Let's test it using our hello endpoint. Let's return a route info here. Let's go back to request.http and create a request for hello endpoint. Get and hello. Let's test it. Now, as you can see, it gives you specific information about the route, including the path, name, method, and handler. This is really useful when you want to reference a route by name instead of hard coding the path everywhere. For example, if the path changes later, you update it in one place and everything using the name still works. Let's go back to web.go. Now, before we close, one more important thing is we want to keep our web routes and API routes separate. Usually in web.go, we store resource type routes like server-side rendering or exposing routes for public files, not API routes actually. So let's create a separate API.go inside the route directory so that we can separate our API routes from web routes. So let's define a function and move our API routes from web.go into this file. Let's copy and import the relevant packages. Now, when we go to the server again, right, you will notice that those routes are no longer listed here, right? That is because Goravel doesn't auto discover routes files. We have to register the API function. We have to register the API function manually. So to register it, let's go to bootstrap app.go. And here in the with routing function, you can see web is already registered here. We will register our API routes similarly here. Let's call API function here. Now when server restarts again, you can see that now the routes are back. So every time you create a new route file, you have to come bootstrap app.go and register here. And one last thing, Goravel has an artisan command called route colon list to list all the registered routes. You can call it by running go run dot artisan route colon list. It will list down all the registered route. It's really useful to quickly confirm if a route is being registered or not. So use this whenever you are not sure if a route is being picked up. Okay, cool. So in this video, we looked at how routing works in Goravel, how to register routes, group them, name them, and how to test them using the HTTP client. In the next video, we are going to look at how to read data from incoming requests like body, query parameters, route parameters, and more. So see you in the next one.